originally grew up in Colorado, and college for me was a fluke. I tell the story. I can remember the one incident in my life that probably got me into higher education, and that was I was helping a friend move back to college in the fall semester. He needed help moving back from Colorado Springs to Greeley, and he asked if I would help. I took a week vacation, spent a week on campus, and fell in love with college. And I'm like, God, I should be here. And 3 months later, I enrolled. And so it was that happenstance that I guess motivated me or helped me click on the idea that maybe I could go to college. College was never talked about in our household. So I think the idea was that I would graduate high school, get into a trade, and that's what I would be doing. So I did end up attending the University of Northern Colorado. After about a year, I got involved a little bit more. I became a resident assistant. I was an assistant hall director. Graduated with my bachelor's degree in business administration and marketing. Loved working in higher education and at student affairs. And so instead of going the business route, I stayed in student affairs, became a hall director, and worked at Weber State University for a year, and decided, well, again, I had somebody that said, if you want to stay in higher education, you need more than a bachelor's degree. So I started looking at college and universities again, and ended up back at the University of Northern Colorado, and got a job as a hall director, a graduate assistant hall director, and continued to work on my master's degree, completed it, and at the time, or during that time, I got married, and my wife was going back to get a second bachelor's in nursing, and I was like, well, what am I going to do now? And so I applied and got into the PhD program at University of Northern Colorado, where I received that degree in 1993 in student personnel administration from UNC. So if somebody were to ask me as a high school student where you're going to be, this would be the last place I would ever thought. So, and I guess that's probably one of the things that motivated me with helping students, especially high school students, because they don't know what's available to them. And I know that through my own experience. And so for me, it was a lot of fun to work with students and help them see the possibilities. Trio, again, was getting involved in Trio was dumb luck. When I graduated with my doctoral degree, I started my job search, and I knew a couple of people that were in Dodge City, Kansas, and they said, hey, we're applying for these grants. We actually secured one. It's called Educational Talent Search. I'm thinking, that sounds funny, but we want you to be involved in implementing it. So I applied, I ended up getting the job, and I was a counselor coordinator. Unbeknownst to me, and starting to understand what TRIO was all about, I realized that I was one of those students. I would have qualified. I came from a low-income family. I was first generation college. My parents were actually immigrants. And so if we would have had TRIO in my high school, Upper Bound Talent Search, I would have been a participant. Like I said, most people in their minds as high school students, they have these grandiose ideas of what they might want to be, but they don't really understand what's available to them. And so I felt like me and my role there, I had the ability and responsibility to help students see the world of work. I ran across a statistic a couple of years ago, and it goes along the lines of people will spend more time shopping for their first car or any car as opposed to shopping for a career. And that kind of stuck with me. So, working in TRIO helped me, kind of change that mindset and help students figure out that your career is your life, and let's make some good choices now so you're not regretting them later. I don't know if it's the biggest challenge, but one um, that always surprised me is that the student population that we worked with, they, even though we told them, you're smart enough, you're good enough, and you can apply to these colleges, you're going to get accepted, they never felt like they could believe you until they actually got an acceptance letter. So, and so again, part of that responsibility is to be their cheerleader, to be their advocate, to be their mentor, to be their parental, to kick them in the butt, to show them that these things are possible with a little bit of effort, grit, and energy. But be honest, I'm going to be forthright, and I'm going to support them. And if they make a bad decision, I'll let them know. If they make great decisions, I'll help them celebrate. My job is to mentor and to guide. Unfortunately, I think students get to the point where they see us as another parent, and that's all they need is another parent. So it's trying to manage that fine line between being a good mentor as opposed to being parental. In my 22 years at Billings in my role, I've seen the state of Montana and the country as a whole move in a better direction to address inequality and address equity issues. And I'm proud to be a part of the TRIO family, and in my career, part of that TRIO family, because the things that we did at the campus level also impacted what was happening at the state level and at the national level. The conversation about first-gen college students, you didn't hear that vocabulary until what, 8 years ago? You started hearing it in higher education, and people started addressing first-gen students. It became part of the vocabulary of colleges and universities. Well, that vocabulary came out of TRIO back in 1965. Obviously you want to learn your position and you want to learn your job and you want to be competent. You want to provide the best service to students. But then the next step is, how do you provide the best service to yourself? And for me, that's finding good mentors. I think a lot of young professionals are intimidated because they see these people with lots of years of experience and they don't know how to approach, and they feel maybe a little bit nervous about that. I can almost remember that myself, but it's kind of the same mindset that we tell our students. We tell our students, you need to go talk to a teacher. You need to go talk to this person. But it's funny how we as professionals aren't willing to take our own advice. So, for me, for not young professionals, it's learning how to be better at your job, and that means reaching out to others that can provide you good guidance. The key is good guidance, because unfortunately, I think there's some people that get have some mentors that may not be the best for them. So I think it's also being selective. To me, that was never my goal, my role. I'm just a good colleague. And in order for me to be a good colleague, I need to share what I know. And whether you're a new director or a new advisor, that's my role. My job is to be developmental. We develop students, we develop staff, we develop our peers. But I think that's what good leadership is looking at people and helping them be better. Because student affairs started out of the idea of student development theory. You want to make a person whole. What they're learning in the classroom is great, but what do we teach them out of the classroom? And again, whether they're a middle school, high school, or a college student, we have the ability to help them be better. It may not be in a formal classroom setting, but students learn a lot out of the classroom, and I've always looked at it as our job to be those people.